I think we should probably just go ahead and get started.
Very good.
We'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to approve the current agenda?
So moved, Melissa.
Ralph.
Second, Melissa.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 25th, 2020?
So move, Mary.
Second, Melissa.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have a budget presentation from Naomi.
Naomi, if you just give me 1 second, I'll get on there.
Okay. That's Melissa.
Peter, I just want you to know I was not able to use my code number. It didn't work. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. I heard you. That's fine. We can see you, so.
Can everybody see the
I got
presentation?
on here at 4:20 and there was nobody else on, and then I just did the same thing it did last time I tried to get on. The code didn't work.
Is everyone seeing the presentation now?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, great.
I see it.
Great. The description is the final budget presentation, which mainly means at the end of the, or part of the board meeting today, after this presentation, the board will be approving the expenditure budget for the 2021 school year. The next slide deals with the governor's budget comparison, some good news and some not so good news, if you will. The budget is in yellow. It's right next to the original governor's presentation of his budget. And you'll notice right off the bat, he had hoped to combine several expenditure-driven aids. That did not happen. That was not approved by the legislature, which would be a good thing for us because we utilize BOCES, especially in a large way. Do notice that the foundation aid is flat, at least as you see it there. But your eyes go down to the bottom, and this is the new information that we have. Obviously, everyone's aware of the pandemic and the impact. Estimates are about $10 billion to the state of New York. If you add that to the $6 billion deficit we knew going into this, that's up to a $6 billion deficit. So there is stimulus money from the federal government. And the governor and legislature together have determined that they will offset that stimulus money with reductions in foundation aid. So even though foundation aid appears to be flat, you can consider, and you'll see in my revenue budget, the foundation aid less this pandemic adjustment is actually what our foundation aid will be from the state. But the final word, at least at this point, is that there is a zero increase. They're not showing a decrease other than offset with the state aid, federal aid, but there's a zero increase going into 2021. And we did anticipate this even before the pandemic. So our revenue figures starting for this year were flat.
Question
Yes, Ralph.
on the federal CARES restoration money. That's from the $2 trillion bill that the Congress passed a week or so ago. Is that something that each individual school district will have to apply for, or will it come through
No.
all?
It will come through the state, and this is the allotment that the state is giving to our district. Every school will be different, and it's based on their foundation aid formula, unless, Steve, you have further information on how it was determined.
Nope, that's exactly right.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next slide. So I'm not going to read all these. I am going to read some key points here, but these are the provisions that basically accompanied the state budget that came out. I do want to draw your eyes to a couple of the bulleted items. If we look down on the left column, the very last item, I'm going to read that aloud. The budget also includes a mechanism authorizing the governor's budget director to make periodic adjustments to nearly all state spending, including school aid, in the event that actual state revenues come in below 99% of estimate, or if actual disbursements exceed 101% of estimates. So this is new. This is something we haven't seen before, where they're talking about possibly adjusting the amount that we have been told on the slide I just showed you in terms of funding that we expect to receive. Let's go to the bulleted item on the top right. The determination of whether spending reductions are called for would be made during 4 specified, quote, measurement periods. So the month of April from 1st to the 30th, May 1st to June 30th, so that's a 2-month period, July 1 to December 31st, and then January 1 to March 31st. And the last second bullet below that, the budget director's adjustments would take effect unless the legislature adopts an alternate plan within 10 days. Again, this is unprecedented for us. We usually are told what the money would be in the beginning of the year, and we work within those parameters. We're not used to being told that at some point down the road, that amount that we are expecting and we planned on could be withdrawn based on the state's revenue or expenditure numbers. So this is a pretty difficult way to budget. So the district had to come up with a plan on how are we going to be dealing with that. And here's our plan. So first of all, we're going to maintain the current 2021 budget projections. We've spent the last 5 months with the board, with the administrators, with the supervisors, determining what their needs are for the year. So we're going to maintain current staffing and the programs that we have in place for 2021. We know our community has been hurt by the loss of employment as well as the coronavirus. So we're at this stage keeping the tax levy flat. Now that is very dependent on what might be happening during those measurement periods. So we do still have time to evaluate and reevaluate that decision. But at this point, and you'll see the slides that follow, take that into account that the tax levy will be at 0%. We're also going to pre-purchase any items that we budgeted in 2021 in the remaining contingency for the current school year, for the 1920 school year, whenever possible. That will reduce it out of next year's budget. We're going to identify those funds and those specific revenues that we can draw from in the event of state cutbacks. We're going to utilize a bus reserve, which we have been funding but have not utilized because we usually put bus expenditures in the budget. It's in the expenditure budget now, but we're going to have the bus reserve as a fallback. We're going to freeze spending after the start of the school year, October 1, to ensure we have adequate funds for 2021, and we can release it after each of those measurement periods go by, depending on, again, whether the budget director determines to pull back on some of the school funds. And lastly, the long-term plan is to plan aggressively starting in next year for 2021 for the following school year and beyond. So under those that plan, our revenue budget, taking into account New York State aid, now that is a combination of the state reduction and the capital project, the building condition survey capital aid. So that's why it's not the full 387 deduct. But you see that new revenue item, federal CARES restoration. So that amount will be coming to the district to offset. You can see local taxes will be flat. We're going to utilize our debt service fund. We've talked about this in the past, and we've allocated 200,000, but for next year it will be 400,000, and that will specifically offset capital expenses. All other revenue are typically 350,000. That will stay budgeted as normal. Appropriated is slightly increased, and applied reserves. So these are reserves that we can utilize in the event that money is taken back from the state. All totaling $24,687,093. This is the revenue side of the budget. To go into more detail, right below, you can see what reserves and what amounts we would be talking about. ERS, that's our employee retirement reserve. TRS is the teacher's employment. Unemployment, we have already had unemployment claims, substitutes, and those who may have left our employment, both during this year or a prior year, are entitled to unemployment and can apply for it. And then there's that bus reserve. You'll see that come up again of 400,000. That's what's in the expenditure budget, but this is our fallback in the event that we need to be able to fund the buses in another way. And that's what totals those applied reserves as part of the revenue budget. Now, I wanted to also present to you options because, as I said, the tax levy at 0% is our starting point. We still don't know all the details from the state, and that first measurement period will be by the end of this month, so we still have time to position ourselves. So what might those other options look for? Well, as you recall, we have a tax cap of 1.61%, and we can do anything in between. We can certainly do above 1.61%, but as you know, that would require a 60% majority of the voters to pass. So we're looking really between 0 and 1.61%. Option 1, I just described to you on the previous slide. Option 2, option 3, you'll notice total revenue does not change. It's still $24,687,093. So by adjusting the tax levy, we'll only adjust the amount of reserves that we need to use to be able to offset any of those state cutbacks. But the actual total revenue amount is going to match, has to match, the expenditure budget. And again, that's what the board will be approving tonight. And down below, you can see the various reserves and where those funds would come from. It may be all, it may be part. We don't know exactly how much might be withheld from the state. So we have a plan in case it goes as high as $1 million.
Naomi, do you have a total for those reserve funds?
What they are
now, or even just ballpark?
Yeah, 6.9 million.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So moving on, we're just going to be looking at an overview of the budget, and this is just a visual. So to identify what the revenue breakdown, you can see that new category of the federal CARES restoration, which will account for 2%. Local taxes, 33%. It's been as low as 30%. You can see that's been rising as far as a percentage of the budget. And the New York State aid at 57%. It was as high as 62%. So over the years, that has been declining. And the next slide will show the expenditure budget that the board will have on their agenda for approval. And you'll see that the 2021 budget of $24,687,093 equals the revenue budget that we have proposed. This is a 1.1 budget to budget increase of the current 2019 and 20 budget. On the next slide, take a look at the three-part budget. Again, the state requires us to put it in this form. This slide or this information will be provided to the public as well. It's just showing the breakdown from administration, capital, and program. But again, our total expenditure budget $24,687,093. The next slide will just give us a visual representation of what that budget looks like and how it's been divided. For the most part, these percentages are within 1% of what they've been over the years. Program has been as high as 66% and as low as 64%. Capital has fluctuated 1 or 2%, and the same thing with administration. But the actual divide amongst the funding has been about the same over the 11 years that I've been with the district. So looking at town rates, you'll hear me say many times, this always makes me nervous to present to you because there are several things that come into play as far as the tax rate is concerned. Looking at it at just face value, it just says that the tax rate that was for 1920 will be the same as 2021, assuming the tax levy is 0 and assuming all other things remain equal. So just a representation about what the tax rates are. That true tax rate is a little under $14 per thousand. But you'll notice that the tax rate are not the same depending on the town. Covert, for example, in Lodi, one is $13 and one is $18. What makes up that difference? Take a look at my next slide. There are two important impacts to tax rates, and that's the equalization rates and whether there's new or increased assessments within each town as they are being assessed. So let's take a $100,000 house that's in Covert and Lodi. The equalization rate, this is the rate determined by the state. Office of Real Property makes these determinations. We won't receive this information till about June or July. Decided that Covert, and these are last year's equalization rates, was at 100% assessment. The equalization for Lodi, however, is 77%. So they're saying that Lodi, the house of 100,000, is actually under assessed or undervalued. So at 100,000, Covert is 100%, so that's a $100,000 house. However, the Lodi house of 100,000 is really valued at almost 130,000. So tax rates are used to adjust for that distinction. And that's why Covert is at 13 and Lodi, to offset that 23% increase in value, is at $18. So those equalization rates will be given to us by the state at a later time. And then remember, each town has to do their own assessments. And we haven't received that information yet as well. Tax rates, now this is a couple years old, but it hasn't, the summary or survey hasn't been conducted through all the districts since then. But I think this is helpful at least to see where South Seneca has fallen within our area and within the area of school districts. We're looking at a 0% tax levy that's going to put us under $14 as we look at increased assessments. Therefore, South Seneca is going to certainly fall still within the lower level between all the districts that we're being compared to in the area. Now, moving on to the next slide. The budget goes one of two ways. Either it's passed by the community or it is not. What would happen if it's voted down? Well, what we've done in the past, we proposed a new budget, put together an attainable tax levy increase. Of course, at this point, we're talking a 0. Possible staff and expenditure cuts, and we present to the community in July. Now, July seems like a strange date. We haven't used that in the past. Well, as you know, the budget vote has been pushed beyond June 1st. So the earliest possible date the budget vote would be June 2nd. And if there's a second vote, assuming the first one is voted down, it would be held the following month in July. What exactly that date is will still be determined. What else about a contingent budget? Well, the tax levy increase would be 0, which it would be as far as our proposal at this point. But a contingent budget has very specific ramifications. In this case, $575,000 of possible cuts would be required to be made. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go to the next slide. And I'll show a side-by-side comparison of the contingent budget to the right and the proposed budget to the left. Proposed budget, again, is $24,687,093. That's a 1.1% budget-to-budget increase. We do have a tax levy cap of 1.61, so we'll be looking at tax levy increase between 0 and 1.61. We can maintain our current staffing and programming. We can continue to purchase the equipment that's been budgeted. We will continue our facility use procedures, which is right now free to the community, and the classroom budget supplies would be provided to our students. Compare that to the right and what a contingent budget would mean. Well, right off the bat, you can see the budget is reduced by $575,000. This is a budget-to-budget decrease. Tax levy would have to be 0%. It would not be an option. And again, we would have staff and program cuts and eliminate all new and replacement equipment of $575,000. This would include buses, computers, science, security cameras, weight room. Those are all under equipment categories. We would have to charge for facility use. Again, these are the conditions the state sets, and students may have to provide their own school supplies. Assuming the budget vote is June 2nd, the community will see 4 propositions. The first is the expenditure budget. Remember, they don't approve the revenue, they just approve the expenditure budget. The second proposition, this is coming from the library. They have asked for $65,000 for each of the 3 libraries, a total of $195,000. We set up the vote for them, but the determination of the vote is on their own. The school doesn't have anything to do with it other than the community voting on their own. The third proposition relates to the expiring terms of 3 board members. At this point, we have 3 interested members. We haven't received all the materials yet, but 3 interested. So potentially there may be 6 people who will be on the, well, not on the proposition, but that will be voted on. But these are the 3 positions that they would be vying for. Proposition 4, this is talking about the option for buses. Again, buses are within the expenditure budget. If the community approves the budget, it's approved to be spent. But in the event, because we don't purchase our buses till later in the year, in the event that the state aid is withdrawn to some degree, that we have the option to be able to use bus reserve fund to be able to fund our buses. Talking about the evolution of the budget, I just think this is very helpful to see where we started. When we did our initial rollover, we had an increase of about 450,000. Fast forward to April 8th tonight, and our total budget again is $24,687,093. That's a $270,000 increase, or a 1.1% budget increase. And if the board approves, they will be adopting that budget, expenditure budget tonight. Lastly, again, I've mentioned several times that there is no definitive date on the budget vote yet, as far as the date is concerned, and even how it's going to be conducted under these new circumstances. But if it were June 2nd, it would be held in Interlaken. Matter of fact, if any date is established, it will be set up in Interlaken. And the week before, the Tuesday before, in Ovid in the Flex Lab, will be the hearing. Any questions on the budget?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you, Naomi.
Good
You're
job.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on. I believe we have superintendent's report.
Yep, let me just struggle with my computer here for 1 second, and I'm almost ready.
Okay.
All right, is everybody seeing the board agenda again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
No.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and thanks, Naomi, for the presentation on our budget. As everyone knows now, the governor this week extended our closure period to April 29th. And I just want to clarify that that means as of today, we're scheduled to return to school on the 29th. It may very well extend beyond then too, but that's our current status. In addition to that news, we got a few other important answers on Monday and Tuesday from the Board of Regents and the State Education Department, specifically about canceling the Regents exams this year. Essentially, this means that any student who is currently enrolled in a course leading to a Regents exam or has already taken the course and intended to take the Regents this year will be credited with credit for the exam as long as they pass the course. This ruling also applies to students taking a course in summer school this year. If they pass the course, they get the exam credit. That's great for us to know ahead of time so no one is taking up academic time specifically preparing to take an exam. Teachers and kids can focus on the curriculum standards leading to passing their courses. At South Seneca, we're spreading the news now that we've decided not to do report cards at all in April. Instead, we'll be sending narrative reports home to all parents of students in grades pre-K through 8, addressing how they've been adjusting to learning from home. In high school, those reports will only go out for the students who have been struggling or failing to engage in the courses. For those that are doing well, the feedback from their teachers in the classes will suffice for now. Narratives are targeted for April 30th to be delivered soon afterwards. As we get into the middle of May, we will either be back in session at school or not, and that will determine our plan for grades and report cards in the credit-bearing courses. All of that will be decided and communicated when we see if the closure lasts into the month of May or beyond. We know there are those that would really like to know our plans for the end of the year, specifically for graduation, but we can't make a good plan this far in advance when we don't know yet if we'll be back in school. There are still other statewide decisions we don't have as well, the biggest one being a new date and guidance for our budget vote and board election. As Naomi mentioned, the earliest it could happen after the most recent governor's executive order is June 1st or the 2nd if we stay with a Tuesday, but there has not been a definitive order on that yet, so we'll need to wait and see. We'll push all our deadlines forward as well, so for board members or other residents running for a board seat, you don't have to worry about an April 20th deadline for petitions. As soon as we have more information, I promise to pass it along. I will continue to use your weekly memo to summarize and capture everything we are learning as we go, including the regular advocacy and analysis we get from our professional organizations. I hope that's helpful. You can see in the supervisor's report attached to this agenda the most recent updates on our food deliveries, which is getting larger by the week, the activity of our drivers who are doing those deliveries, and our cleaning and maintenance staff. Everyone continues to do an incredible job getting our essential services done, and we're paying close attention to the safest possible practice to keep our workers safe. On that subject, one of our agenda items at this meeting is the new MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, with the Employees Association, which recognizes that our workers are sometimes being asked to do things outside their typical job descriptions. And it's worth saying how willing and eager everyone in the organization has been to help where needed. Peter asked me in our prep work for this meeting if we're realizing any particular financial savings during the closure period. But other than the costs of running the spring athletics season and maybe some energy and bus fuel savings, I wouldn't say there's too much to highlight. It's true that almost no one will be receiving extra pay during this time, like for special bus trips or chaperoning, but this won't have a huge impact on our budget year. I do want to say on the topic of the upcoming budget that it's fairly obvious that it won't be easy dealing with an uncertain revenue picture. We do feel that we've positioned the district very well to be able to handle a year's worth of significant aid reductions, but even saying that, we'll have to see how much of a reduction we'll get. The question of our tax levy is a very important decision for the board, and considering that we postponed our scheduled board workshop in March, it might be worth taking the time to do that meeting between now and our next scheduled board meeting. If we take even an hour or so in the next 2 weeks sometime, we can discuss the full implications of each of the 3 options Naomi outlined in the presentation. I'd like to get the opportunity to show you the full details of how the decision this year affects future budgets down the road. Please let me know if you'd like me to schedule that, and we can obviously do that by email if you'd like. The scheduling, I mean. Finally, as we look at today's new business agenda, I would like to ask Adam and Stacy during the discussion period for each of the teacher tenure recommendations to read into the record the letters they wrote. It's too bad we can't do these resolutions in a public setting outside of a video conference, so I thought it might be nice for anyone watching or reading the transcript later to hear or see how much we think of these teachers' great work. This is a difficult and challenging time for everyone in our community, even for those who are safe and healthy, but especially for those who are not. Besides being an educational institution, we are very much a social one, and we miss interacting with each other in person like we're used to. Our greatest hope is that everyone will stay safe and we get back to full operations again when it's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I think it would be a good idea to try and schedule that. So we'll put that on the list to work out
Great.
for a meeting. Moving on to supervisor reports. We have a report from transportation and food service and facilities. Does anybody have any questions about those? Okay, moving on. Board member reports. Does anybody have anything to report? I don't think we've had any board committees either.
Peter, let me just mention that the new closure period now extends past the buildings and grounds meeting. So we can have a side discussion sometime about whether we should do that by video conference or postpone.
Okay. All right. Moving on to new business. May I have a motion to accept the resignation of the elementary teacher, Miss Nuenvo, from the position of elementary teacher effective June 30th, 2020.
So moved, Mary.
Second, Ralph.
Discussion?
Second, Dave.
We're sorry to see Mai leave. Her circumstances have changed and she'll be relocating at the end of the year. And so we wish her the best.
Sad.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the tenure recommendation of Katie Clemenson in the tenure area of elementary teacher effective June 30th, 2020?
So moved, Melissa.
Second, Mary.
Discussion?
Adam.
All right. It is my honor to recommend our UPK teacher, Katie Clemenson, for tenure as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District. Ms. Clemenson is currently teaching her 4th year at South Seneca Elementary School in our UPK program. She began her South Seneca career with us during the first year of the UPK program's implementation and has been instrumental for its ongoing success. Ms. Clemenson came to us 4 years ago, already with a successful UPK teaching background. These already established positive experiences and background proved to be an extremely valuable asset, not only for Ms. Clemenson and her students, but also for our elementary school as we were just implementing our full day UPK program. Her knowledge, expertise, and ideas were essential in bringing our newly formed UPK teaching team together during this crucial time for our program. In addition to her valuable insight and leadership, Ms. Clemenson has proven herself to be an excellent teacher who genuinely cares for all of her students and their families. She provides an outstanding, nurturing, and supportive learning experience for our first-year students and their families, who are all fortunate to benefit from having Ms. Clemenson as their teacher. In summary, Ms. Clemenson has proven herself to be a great teacher and an outstanding leader within our successful UPK program. We are lucky to have her in the elementary school, and I give her my full recommendation to receive tenure as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District.
Thank you, Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Had myself
Aye.
muted.
Peter, should you be asking for negative votes, and that would keep everything easier, because then they would all know, the minutes would reflect that we all voted in favor?
Yeah, I can ask for the nays. All right, next item, may I have a motion to approve the 10-year recommendation of Danielle Sanders in the 10-year area of elementary teacher effective June 30th, 2020?
So moved, Brenda.
Second,
Second.
Mary.
Discussion?
Yep.
Adam,
It is my honor to recommend our UPK teacher, Danielle Sanders, for tenure as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District. Ms. Sanders is currently teaching her 4th year at South Seneca Elementary School in our UPK program. She began her career with us during the first year of the UPK program's implementation and is a big reason for its ongoing success. Ms. Sanders came to us with a strong educational background and has done an exceptional job applying her knowledge and skill set to the UPK classroom. She is also continuing to improve her teaching by constantly seeking out professional development opportunities focused on early childhood and stepping up as a team leader within the UPK program. Ms. Sanders genuinely cares for all of her students, their families, and our South Seneca community. In addition to her leadership within the grade level and classroom, Ms. Sanders has shown her support for our kids and community outside of the classroom. Ms. Sanders has volunteered her time coaching the UPK students, the four-town soccer program outside of school, and also works as an extended day tutor during the school year, as well as a variety of roles within the extended day program during the summer months. Ms. Sanders, excuse me, Ms. Sanders has proven herself to be an outstanding UPK teacher and has fully invested herself in the South Seneca community. We are lucky to have her in the elementary school, and I give her my recommendation without reservation to receive full tenure status as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District.
Thank you, Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right. May I have a motion to approve the 10-year recommendation of Carly Hungerford in the 10-year area of elementary teacher effective June 30th, 2020?
So moved, Dave.
Second, Brenda.
Discussion?
it's Adam again.
All right. It is my honor to recommend our first grade teacher, Carly Hungerford, for tenure as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District. Mrs. Hungerford is currently teaching her 4th year at South Seneca Elementary School. She began her career with us during the first year of our South Seneca UPK program and was instrumental in the program's initial success. Through her background as a leader in early childhood, Mrs. Hungerford was able to bring in a lot of exciting and important ideas to our new UPK program. As a school, we truly benefited from her experiences and expertise right from the beginning. After her first year with us, a first grade teacher had retired, and Mrs. Hungerford's request to move into that position was granted. It has been great to witness Mrs. Hungerford challenge herself in this new role professionally and watch her improve each year as a teacher. Working closely with her over the past 4 years, a couple of impressive traits seem to always be naturally on display. First is her love and compassion for her students. It is evident in every interaction I have with Mrs. Hungerford that her goal is always what is best for the specific student that we are focusing on. She understands that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach, that each student has his or her own set of needs, and she will do whatever it takes, as well as try any approach at reaching that student to ensure success. Second is that Mrs. Hungerford is demonstrating she is a lifelong learner. She constantly seeks out meaningful professional development opportunities both in and out of district. She constantly collaborates with colleagues to find ways to improve the quality of education her students receive. This is a valuable trait that will only continue to improve the high quality of education that our South Seneca students receive in the years to come. In summary, Mrs. Hungerford is a caring, supportive, and great teacher who will do anything in her power to help each one of her students find success in the classroom. In addition, she is a lifelong Falcon who is fully invested in the South Seneca community. For those reasons and more, I highly recommend Mrs. Hungerford to receive full tenure status as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District.
Thank you, Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the tenure recommendation of Alex Ackerman in the tenure area of elementary teacher effective June 30th, 2020?
So moved, Ralph.
Second, Patricia.
Discussion?
Adam.
It is my honor to recommend our fifth grade teacher, Alex Ackerman, for tenure as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District. Ms. Ackerman is currently teaching her fourth year of fifth grade in our elementary school. It has been truly impressive to watch Ms. Ackerman's growth as a teacher since she started her career at South Seneca. In the classroom, Ms. Ackerman has quickly become one of our most valuable and respected teachers in the building. Ms. Ackerman immerses herself in several important professional development opportunities, as well as commits herself to improving in every aspect of being a teacher. These efforts have resulted in Ms. Ackerman becoming an outstanding and extremely innovative teacher. One of the most impressive things that jump out immediately when observing Ms. Ackerman teach is the classroom culture that has been created within all of her classes. There is such a high level of mutual respect between the teacher and students that is rare and amazing to witness. Ms. Ackerman has mastered giving students control over and letting them take over their learning. It is always inspiring to watch this unfold in the classroom. As a result of Ms. Ackerman's philosophy and talents, she quickly became a go-to person for guidance and support. Her work and leadership in the building led the elementary school to create an innovation leader position. Ms. Ackerman was naturally appointed to this position and has done a tremendous job as our innovative leader. In summary, Ms. Ackerman is an outstanding and innovative teacher who truly cares for the success of each individual student she works with. She is fully invested in our school, is a leader among staff, and an invaluable member of our school community. We are very lucky to have her at South Seneca, and I give her my highest recommendation to receive full tenure status as an elementary teacher in the South Seneca Central School District.
Thank you, Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? All right. May I have a motion to approve the tenure recommendation of Chelsea Brinkman in the tenure area of special education effective June 30th, 2020?
So moved, Patricia.
Second, Dave.
Discussion?
Stacy.
Excuse me, weren't we supposed to hear the recommendation from Shelley?
Not yet. No.
This is for Chelsea Brinkman. We're about to hear the letter written from Stacy.
Stacy, I'm sorry, yes. Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. I'm delighted to recommend Chelsea Brinkman for tenure in the area of special education. Over the past 4 years, Ms. Brinkman has provided special education services to students in grades 2 through 5. She spent her first year at South Seneca in a co-taught second grade classroom and the rest of her time pushing into grades 3 through 5 to provide consultant teacher direct services. On a daily basis, Ms. Brinkman demonstrates flexibility, strong communication skills, organization, the ability to multitask, and the ability to work as a team member. Ms. Brinkman demonstrates a strong understanding of students' abilities, strengths, and areas that need to be further developed. Ms. Brinkman demonstrates a strong ability to build trusting relationships with students, parents, and staff. By building these relationships, Ms. Brinkman is able to help students build on their skills and help students to take educational risks. Parents feel very comfortable reaching out to Ms. Brinkman for help and guidance. Through regular communication, with parents and guardians, Ms. Brinkman helps families with strategies and ideas to help their child continue to build on their skills. Ms. Brinkman has a great knowledge of learning standards and skills that are developmentally appropriate at the upper elementary level. Additionally, she is able to modify assignments and tasks to provide equal access to curriculum to students with disabilities. It is with great honor and without reservation, I recommend Chelsea Brinkman for tenure in the area of special education.
All right. Thank you, Stacy.
I have a question.
Yep.
How long has she been working here?
She's been with us for 4 years.
4 years. Okay, thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? All right. May I have a motion to approve the tenure recommendation of Aaron Harder in the tenure area of special education effective June 30th, 2020?
So move, Mary.
Second, Patricia.
All right, discussion. I believe we have Stacy again.
Yep. It's with great pleasure that I recommend Erin Harder for tenure in the area of special education. Mrs. Harder has been an excellent addition to the special education department over the past 4 years. During her time with us, Mrs. Harder has worked with our youngest learners, providing differentiated instruction to meet the needs of all students. She creates relationships with students, staff, and families, and has taken a leadership role within the special education department. Mrs. Harder sets and maintains high level of expectations for all students. Mrs. Harder demonstrates expertise in content, New York State learning standards, special education regulations, and developmentally appropriate approaches, instruction, and strategies, all which are clearly present in her daily instruction. Ms. Harder works closely with grade level teachers and assists them in strategies to help students academically and socially and suggests possible classroom accommodations, modifications to meet the needs of all students. Mrs. Harder regularly seeks professional development opportunities. Through these opportunities, she continues to gain knowledge and strategies to foster student growth. Mrs. Harder eagerly collaborates with and shares materials and information with fellow special education staff and grade level teachers. It has been my pleasure to work with Mrs. Harder over the past 4 years. Mrs. Harder is highly organized, completes all required documentation within set timelines, makes genuine connections with students, staff, and families, and is a leader within the elementary school. It is a great pleasure that I recommend Mrs. Harder for tenure in special education.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? All right. Moving on. May I have a motion to accept the CSE recommendations?
So move, Mary.
Second, Ralph.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays? Nope. All right. May I have a motion to approve the budget for 2021 school year in the total amount of $24,687,093 and to assess and levy upon the taxable property of the district the necessary tax therefore?
So moved, Ralph.
Second, Mary.
Discussion?
As we mentioned a couple of times, this motion here is to adopt the expenditure side of the budget. And so it still leaves us time to discuss the tax levy.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Okay. May I have a motion to accept the New York State Property Tax Report Card?
So moved, Brenda.
So moved, Melissa. Second,
So moved.
Melissa.
Turn.
Discussion?
This is a required document after the budget has been approved. It is a point in time of what the expectation is regarding the tax levy, the reserves used, and it's, again, a state requirement.
All right, may I have a motion? Or all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? All right, moving on. May I have a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the South Seneca Employees Association and the district regarding conditions of employment during the COVID-19 extended closure period?
So moved, Mary.
Second, Melissa.
Second, Brenda.
Second, Patricia.
Discussion?
So our intention and our commitment is that we're paying all of our employees through this closure period up through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. And for our hourly employees, many of whom are in this association, that requires a memorandum of agreement that comes before the board. So I've said previously, and I'll say again, everybody in this unit has been fantastic in adapting to the situation and stepping up when we need them. But this MOA makes it official, our conditions of employment during this time.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, moving on. May I have a motion to approve the employment agreement with the South Seneca Administrators Association effective July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023?
So moved, Dave.
Second,
Second,
Mary.
Melissa.
All right, discussion?
So this is one of 3 units whose agreement expires this year on June 30th. We also have the non-affiliated agreement and our agreement with teaching assistants. But we finished negotiating with the administrators, and this contract, as you can see, will be valid for 3 years, from 2020 to 2023.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Aye.
Opposed? Brenda.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion to authorize the funding of the Capital Reserve Fund by up to $500,000 to be funded from unappropriated fund balance effective June 30th, 2020. Additionally, authorize the funding of the TRS Reserve Sub-Fund by up to 2% or total TRS compensation to be funded from unappropriated fund balance or transferred by another appropriate reserve effective June 30th, 2020.
So moved, Brenda.
Second, Melissa.
Discussion?
These are annual approvals by the board. In the event that there are funds remaining at the end of the school year, they would go into both of those reserves at various amounts.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? All right. May I have a motion to authorize the purchase of motor vehicles for the use of the transportation program of the district, including up to 4 school buses? and expend therefore an aggregate sum not to exceed 400,000, and be it further authorized the sum of 400,000 being the aggregate of the aforesaid maximum estimated amount, or so much thereof as may be necessary, shall be raised by the appropriation of the amount not to exceed 400,000 from the school bus reserve fund or available budget fund balance.
So moved, Dave.
Second, Mary.
Discussion?
A question?
So as you can tell, that was written by our school attorney, so that is written in appropriate legalese. What the board is approving, that this be put in front of the public. The board can't approve it on their own. The public has to approve any funds that is utilized from a capital reserve. So that's what the board is approving, that this can be put in front of the voters for a vote.
Question, Naomi?
Yes.
What is has been our experience in terms of the useful life of the buses we have and perhaps the ones that we might purchase?
Well, we have a 7-year replacement, and certainly the life of the bus is longer than that. The biggest issues we run across, Ralph, is the repairs that are needed to be able to keep it up to DOT standards, which are set very high.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
You? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Brenda?
Second, Melissa.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Hello.
Good night.
Good night.